and today we're making cinnamon roll cupcakes. Cinnamon roll cupcakes that we're going to make today is basically when we put regular cinnamon rolls inside cupcake liners to bake. So after it comes out, it looks like a cupcake, but it's actually just a cinnamon roll. And this makes it easier to carry around if you're planning to take this to a picnic or a party. It's really simple to carry around, it's easier to eat, and it's also really cute. But there are also other ways to make cinnamon roll cupcakes. Some people place a cinnamon roll on top of some cupcake batter and bake in the oven, which comes out really nice. And there are also other people who sprinkle cinnamon sugar in between each layer of cupcake batter, which also comes out a really nice cinnamon roll cupcake. But today we're just going to place some regular cinnamon rolls, which I have made before on my channel, into some cupcake cases to bake, so it comes out in a cupcake form. So let's get started. For the ingredients you will need: 4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1.5 cups of whole milk, 1/4 cup of unsalted butter melted, 1/4 cup of water warmed up to about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 package of active dry yeast, about 8 grams, 1/4 cup of white granulated sugar, and 1 egg. And for the filling you will need 1.5 tablespoons of ground cinnamon, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, and the 1/3 cup of unsalted butter softened at room temperature. First off, I have some warm water here, about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to add in the yeast to let it activate. And I'm also going to add in a little less than a teaspoon of white granulated sugar to help the yeast activate a little faster. And I'm just going to give it a stir. Now I'm just going to set it aside until the yeast is nice and bubbly and there is a layer of foam on top. While we're waiting for the yeast to activate, we're going to mix together our wet ingredients. Into my milk, which should be at room temperature, I'm going to add in the vanilla extract. Add in 1 egg, which also should be at room temperature. Also add in the melted butter, which should be melted but not hot. So I melted this in some hot water and I've set it to cool, so this is no longer hot. And finally, add in the sugar. And we're just going to mix this until everything is combined. My wet ingredients are mixed in, so now I'm just going to set it aside and mix together the flour and the salt. Add the salt to the flour. And just mix it together. My wet ingredients are mixed through, the dry ingredients are mixed through, and the yeast is now really activated. You can see there's lots of bubbles on top. So now we're ready to start making the dough. Let's move over to the stand mixer. In a stand mixer bowl, fit it with a dough hook attachment. Now as always, you could also do this by hand in a large bowl with a wooden spoon. I'm going to add in my wet ingredients. I'm also going to add in the activated yeast. And we're just going to mix this together. Now add in the dry ingredients. Now mix this on low speed until it starts forming a dough. This is starting to form a dough, so now again I'm just going to mix it on low speed for about 5 to 10 minutes until it is nice and smooth. While the dough is mixing, prepare a large bowl, which would be the bowl that the dough would be rising in later on. And you want to spray with a good amount of cooking spray so later on the dough does not stick to the bowl and it does not dry out in the bowl. But if you don't have non-stick cooking spray, you could just brush it with a little bit of vegetable oil or any flavorless oil. You want to make sure you mix the dough until the sides is nice and smooth and the sides of the bowl is really clean. This should be really soft, kind of sticky, but nothing should actually stick to your finger. I'm just going to form this into a ball and place it into the bowl for it to rise. Now I'm just going to cover this with this lid I got, which I use really often when it comes to rising dough because it's reusable, so you don't have to waste any plastic wrap. Now if you don't have this, obviously you could use some plastic wrap, or you could also use a damp towel and just drape it over the bowl. You just want to make sure it's completely covered so the dough does not dry out while it's rising. Now we're going to set this somewhere warm for it to rise for about an hour until it is doubled in size. And the time that it takes to rise may vary depending on the temperature of where you put it. Now we're going to prepare our filling. So some people just spread their butter onto their dough and sprinkle on the ground cinnamon and both kinds of sugar. But I like to do it my way and mix everything together so that it spreads really evenly. So in a large bowl, I'm going to add in my softened unsalted butter, and this should be at room temperature. So now we're going to dump in both types of sugar. This is brown sugar and some white granulated sugar. And also add in the ground cinnamon. Then we're just going to mix everything together. And this could take a little time because there's a lot of sugar and a little butter. But just mix everything until it forms a paste. Alright, I have formed our filling. It is a really thick paste. So now we're just going to set it aside until the dough is finished rising. The dough has finished rising. As you can see, it has definitely doubled in size. So I'm just going to set it aside. And before we dump it onto our cutting board, I'm going to sprinkle it with a light layer of flour so nothing sticks. Now I'm going to flip the dough onto the floured surface. This should be really soft right now. Now I'm just going to cut this in half because since we're making this into a cupcake form, if it is too big, it won't fit into the cupcake cases. So we're just going to cut this in half to form two smaller ones. We're just going to place this back into the bowl and cover it so nothing dries out. Just set that aside. Meanwhile, we're going to sprinkle a little more flour onto the dough, so again, nothing sticks. Now I'm just going to use a rolling pin to roll this out until it is a big rectangle about ½ an inch thick. Use your hands to straighten out the corners so it's more uniform later on when we roll it up. And you really want to make sure you make a rectangle. I've rolled the dough into a large rectangle with straight corners. Now we're going to spoon on half of the filling and spread it all the way to the edge. And to spread it, I like to use an offset spatula, but of course you could just use a regular spatula or you could also use a butter knife. I have spread out the filling, but I left about ½ centimeter on each edge so it doesn't come out while it's rolling up. So now we're just going to roll this up nice and tight so it forms a log. Make sure you start from the longer side. Once it's been rolled up into a log, I'm just going to roll it around so the seam could sort of close up. Prepare a cupcake tray lined with some cupcake liners. Now, I'm using cupcake liners today, but I will also show you how to do it without cupcake liners, so you could choose from both. Now we're just going to cut this into 12 equal pieces. So first, cut it in half. Now we're just going to cut each half into 6 equal pieces. Then cut each half into thirds, and cut each third into half. And and then just place it into the cupcake frames. Once we're done with this tray, we're just going to set it aside for it to rise the second time while we work on the second tray of cupcakes. This time we're not going to use any cupcake liners, so first we're going to prepare the tray. For the second tray, you want to make sure that it is dry, and then we're going to grab some cooking spray and just spray each cavity with some of it so it's nice and greased. But you could also just use some oil or melted butter and just brush it up the sides. Once you've done that, just set it aside, and we're going to do the exact same thing with the second half of the dough. My cinnamon roll cupcakes has came out of the oven. It has been in there for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So you want to keep an eye on it while it's baking because there is sugar in it and it might burn. And to tell if it is done, just insert a toothpick into the center, and if it comes out clean, that means it's done. The bake time may vary because every oven is different. So again, just test it by using a toothpick and see if there's a nice and golden brown color on top. You can see these has puffed up a lot in the oven. It is really soft while it's warm, so I really suggest you to eat it once it's come out of the oven and cooled down just slightly. So let's take a look. You can eat the cinnamon roll cupcakes as it is now. It tastes great. But since cinnamon roll cupcakes usually go with a cream cheese glaze, I'm going to show you how to make that today. But this step is totally optional. If you don't want to add it, you don't have to do this. So for the cream cheese glaze, we're only making a really small amount here. You'll need 2 tablespoons of softened cream cheese at room temperature. And you want to make sure it's nice and soft, which makes it a lot easier to mix. You're going to need 1 tablespoon of icing sugar, also known as powdered sugar or confectioner sugar. A 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla, just to give it a little flavor, and 1 tablespoon of heavy whipping cream to thin it out. So in a bowl here, I'm going to add in the cream cheese, add in the vanilla, and we're just going to mix that up until the vanilla is mixed into the cream cheese. Then we'll add in the icing sugar and also mix that in. Once it's smooth, we'll add in the heavy whipping cream. And again, just mix that all in. And that is how you make a simple cream cheese glaze. Now, since the cupcakes are separated, you could just drizzle it on when you want to eat it. So you could store these cupcakes at room temperature, no need to put it in the fridge, which makes it nice and soft, and it keeps that softness. So I'm just going to load this into a Ziploc bag, which makes it easier to drizzle over the cinnamon roll cupcakes. Or if you want, you could just smear it over if you don't care how it looks like. Now this glaze is really runny because it's not a frosting, it's a glaze. And if it is too thick, it would be impossible to drizzle over the cinnamon roll cupcakes. And if somehow your cream cheese glaze turned out too thick, you could just add in about 1/2 tablespoon of cream to thin it out. Now we're just going to take one and drizzle it over. Take one. Snip off a very small tip at the end of the Ziploc bag. And we're just going to drizzle this all over the cupcakes. roll cupcakes. These smell really good, they're really soft on the inside, and I suggest you don't eat it while it's still warm because it's a lot softer, but of course they still taste good while it's at room temperature. You can see the cream cheese drizzled on top makes it really pretty, but of course you could still spread it on top if you don't care how it looks like. These are really easy to carry around if you're planning to take it out to a picnic, and it's easy to eat because you don't have to get your hands dirty if you have the cupcake liners on the bottom. You don't have to think about getting hands all sticky. Make sure to check out my other cinnamon roll video on my channel. So, I hope you can try these out. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye! Now, as with always, you could also do this in... So I have a bowl here, and I'm just going to add in the softened cream cheese. And I want to make sure this is at room temperature, which makes it a lot easier to make. A lot easier to mix.